So in this part, we'll be creating our EKS cluster, and I've logged into my AWS console and I'm on the EKS cluster section. So we can use the GUI to create the EKS cluster, but in most of the cases, we'll be not having access to GUI. So I will be showing you how you can create it using your own command line. So for this, firstly, you will need access to your AWS secret key and access key. So if I write AWS configure, then I've already configured my account. I've entered my AWS access key and secret key ID, and I've set my region as well. So to create the cluster, we'll be requiring EKS ETL. So I'm writing the command EKS ETL create cluster. Name of the cluster I will be mentioning is at drawing app, and we'll be mentioning the region, which will be AP South 1 in my case, and we'll be writing Fargate. I'll explain what is Fargate later, but for right now, you'll have to create this, and it will take around 15 to 20 minutes to configure the whole cluster. And in this cluster, if I see if it has started creating or not. Yeah, so whenever you are writing this command, a new stack will be created. CloudFormation template stack will be created, which will create your cluster. So in about 15 minutes, your cluster will be ready. So I'll cut this video here, and I'll see you in some time. So it has almost around like 12 minutes have passed, and the cluster is still creating. But only like the Fargate profile is remaining, but everything else is I think configured. So if I go to my console and click on the cluster, so we get an overview of what is the server and API server endpoint, what is the OpenID Connect provider URL, and if we go to resources, we are seeing two pods of core DNS. We have not used any custom deployment right now, so we have the core DNS deployment available here. Then we have cluster nodes. We don't have any nodes right now. And if we go to the compute, you will see that we have something known as Fargate here. And in the command we use to create the cluster as well, we use something like a Fargate command. So I'll first dissect the command which we have used to create the cluster. So we wrote create cluster, and this is pretty clear what is the name of the cluster. But the thing which concerns is Fargate. So Fargate is a serverless compute engine for containers that eliminates the need to provision and manage servers. So what this means is that there are traditionally two ways of using the Kubernetes cluster with Amazon. First is we can use the EC2 instances, or we can use the Fargate. So in EC2 instances, we have to manage the nodes, and we have to check if they're idle and if they occur any bugs or any misconfiguration. So we have to handle them manually. But in the case of Fargate, all this is managed by AWS itself. So I've created a differentiation between both of these models. So firstly, EC2 will require manual provision and scaling, whereas Fargate is fully managed by AWS. Like basically all of the pods and nodes will run on Fargate compute services, compute containers. So users will manage nodes and capacity on EC2, whereas Fargate is serverless and there is no requirement of node management. And EC2, we will have to pay for all the EC2 instances which we use, even for the idle ones. Whereas in Fargate, we'll only pay for the resources used. And we use EC2 in the cases where we need to have more control over the infrastructure. Whereas if we are only concerned with deployment of the applications, we can use the Fargate profiles. So I think the application would have, okay, it is still deploying. If I see compute, yeah, but yeah, this needs to complete the Fargate profiles need to be completed. So we have a default Fargate profile, but we need to create another profile, Fargate profile, so that we can use that namespace for scheduling our pods. So I'll write another command here. Okay, so the key case cluster is ready as well. So now I'll be creating a new Fargate profile. So EKS create Fargate profile. We'll give it a name as demo Fargate, and we can specify the cluster name as well, which is drawing app. We can also write the region AP South 1. Let me make sure if something else is required. Yeah. And we can also create the namespace for the Fargate profile, which is app whiteboard. So when I do this, a new target profile will be created. So basically, we are just separating the namespace, and we'll be using app whiteboard for scheduling the pods, which we'll be using in the deployment. So as you see right now here, a new target profile is being created. After this, we will be moving on to creating the deployment file, and that will be a part of the next video part. And that is all for this part.